Okay, everybody, module 3.3 or submodule 3.3 of module 3. This one's a little bit longer. Sorry, but this one's going to be a little bit longer, the lecture part of it. All right, and we're going to cover more material because we're going to look at both sides of the approach. We're going to look at the leader and the follower in relation to how to maximize both sides of the approach to increase organizational effectiveness and efficiency, obviously. Continuous improvement. Okay, how do we get from a 95 to a 96? All right, yeah, we're doing something right. If we're down in the 70s, that's not continuous improvement. We need a paradigm shift. If we're down in the 50s, assuming a 0 to 100, measurement of a test, if a student's getting a 50 on a test, continuous improvement is not what you're interested in. You need a paradigm shift. You need to figure out what is going on, because going from a 50 to a 51 is not going to help. Going from a 50 to a 55 is not going to help. Going from a 90 to a 95 is a huge increase in relation to profitability, diminishing defects, whatever the measurement outcome is. Okay, so when we look at discussing both sides of the situational approach, we are looking to how can we help improve organizational effectiveness and efficiency, how well we do it, and how well we're getting it done. Okay, so let's kind of take a little walk through this and see. This is the last part of module 3 in relation to situational approach or situational leadership. The next two modules, 3.4 and 3.5 submodules, I'm sorry, are going to focus on path goal theory. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this. All right, we talk about situational leadership. Let's go over the flexibility approach to it. Okay, we know flexibility is important. We talked about this already. Okay, we know that situational leadership is a relationship-oriented type. And it is. It's built on the goal, obviously the task, but it's relationship oriented. Okay. Why? Because the leader doesn't use a single style. The leader is not autocratic. The leader is not transactional. Okay. Those are somewhat, or servant leadership. Those are somewhat single styles. And there is a relationship. Now, we're not getting into something like LMX yet, which if you don't know what LMX is, it's okay. You don't have to yet, but you will. Where we look at the dyadic component of the relationship, but you establish a relationship with the follower and the leader. It's something where, as a follower, you know the leader's there. You know the individual's there. You may not see them every day. Heck, I can remember at Caterpillar, my boss at Caterpillar, when I worked on the global side, there were times I didn't see him for months at a time. I mean, months at a time. And if we were overseas, I didn't have any contact with him. Okay. Like I said, this was way before everybody had FaceTime on their phones and Zoom was everywhere. Okay. Yeah, there were sometimes we talk on the phone maybe once a week or something just to see how the project was doing. There were times we had no contact at all for weeks and weeks. Okay. That's the relationship. It's not a very healthy one. And he basically said, I have no idea what you guys do anyway. He'd been there for 40 some years, didn't even have a college degree. They just put him in charge of us, and he basically just signed paperwork we gave him. Okay. That was his segue into retirement. And he did. He retired within a year of us being put with him. Okay. A leader will most likely use a directive style with new employees. Most likely. It's not written in stone. This is just a macro analysis, and they'll use a delegating style with senior employees who are already intrinsically motivated. They already know what they're doing. They know their job. They're constantly trying to find new ways to do their job better, quicker, faster, with greater return. Okay. If an employee starts to get disengaged, that happens to all of us. Come on, you never had a job where you got bored? Me at 16, yeah, I think any job would have bored me at 16. Okay, just because of my personality. And I wanted to do other things. This was the necessary evil I had to do so I could do what every 16-year-old wants to do, and that's go out and date on the weekends and go to parties and have fun. Okay, you need money to do that stuff, obviously. Okay, if the employee starts to disengage from the task as they accumulate knowledge, the leader will shift to that coaching style. Okay, focus less on the task, more on the relationship. Okay, relationships can be a positive thing. They really can. All right. Just an FYI, I was contacted by a headhunter here very recently about a dean's position in another part of the country, and I listened. I'm a nice person. I listened to the pitch he ran at me. about, they're rarely interested. They want to interview you. And I said, no, I'm not ready to do that. The relationship here is more important to me than the task career component of moving from an associate dean to a dean. Do I want to do that someday? Sure. But right now, I'm more focused on the relationship. You could say I'm more in the coaching style with my boss, the dean, Dean Waller. Okay. If the highly skilled employee becomes burned out, the leader might shift to a supporting role. Okay. If that burnout sets in, yeah, you got to shift. Okay. Because when burnout sets in, and I use the word burnout generically speaking, okay, there are more academic words that can be used, but that's fair enough right now in a practical sense. All right. You need to shift quickly into that supportive style. All right. Because you need to form a stronger component of the relationship, and then you need to look for more of a challenge. Maybe the person needs to be challenged more, to be pushed more. Okay. You have to understand that individual's personality. I knew people at Caterpillar that did not want to make decisions. They just wanted to come in. They wanted to do 8 hours. They wanted to leave, and that was it. They wanted to do the same job over and over and over again because they knew what they were doing, and people left them alone. Just leave me alone. Okay. And they wanted left alone, and they didn't want to do anything new. They didn't want to add any new knowledge or skills. They just wanted to do what they were doing. All right. And if you tried to do anything new with them, they fought you the whole way. It wasn't efficient. It definitely wasn't effective. Right. You need to understand that component to it. What's the collaboration among team members? Now, this is where it starts to get interesting. It allows not only for an interaction, that dyadic relationship, which we'll talk about later, between the leader and the follower, but also interactions between the followers and another component or multiple followers. Okay. Situational leadership can be adaptive, not just from you could say a vertical movement, but on a horizontal level as well. Collaboration increases team productivity and engagement. However, this usually has to be started by the leader. You get people into that collaborative functional team. Yeah. In global operations, we worked as a functional team. There were 5 of us. Okay. And unfortunately, luckily we were all highly educated, MBAs and higher. We were self-motivated, intrinsically motivated, career-driven. Our boss, our leader, he wasn't good at it. We were able to collaborate in relation to ourselves. We regulated ourselves, peer regulation, okay, kind of thing. If there was a weak link, it came out quickly, and the other 4 members let the person know, hey. All right. But usually the collaboration increases that performance. The leader is the one there pushing it, when they're inspiring that. Okay. Getting people to work together, getting people to put their skills out there, their time and talent kind of aspect. And it allows for the collective to operate in that creative structure. Okay. To get individuals to bring forth, all right, to put forth new ideas, to take risks. Doesn't mean that you're going to do it, but guys, taking a risk is opening your mouth and saying something that's external to the norm, to the status quo. That's a risk. Okay. 5 seconds of fear is all it takes to facilitate a risk. The fear being you got to open your mouth and actually say something. All right. Once you say, well, what happens if it takes you longer than 5 seconds to say it? Doesn't matter. Once you start down the road, there's no turning around. You just don't stop. Once you bring forth a new idea, once it's out there, it's out there. You can't put the toothpaste back in the bottle kind of thing, or the tube, or whatever it is. Okay. You want to allow for that creative structure out there to maybe be able, especially individuals that are highly knowledgeable and highly skilled, they may come up with a better idea than what you're currently doing, the better mousetrap kind of argument. Okay. Within situational leadership, the adaptability is important. Like we've talked about this already. When you talk about any kind of construction of planning is essential. Okay. I kind of got that at the bottom there. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. The leader needs to assess the foundation of the problem. Okay. If it's labor related, assess what's missing. Find the gaps. There's always going to be gaps that need to be filled. Okay. Find the gaps. All right. Then he or she must analyze the condition and what's causing that problem. What's the current condition that's causing the problem? Got to deal with what's right in front of your face before you can deal with what's down the road. Okay. Take the stick out of your eye before you worry about the speck in your friend's eye, that kind of thing. Finally, how the plan to solve the problem will be implemented. How's it going to impact the organization? That's a big one. And then even on a micro level, on a secondary level, how's it going to impact the stakeholders that are involved in this? It could be employees, it could be the community, it could be shareholders, could be government related. I mean, there's so many suppliers, customers. Okay. You have to analyze how this outcome will impact not just the organization, because that's the essential one. Okay. That's the most important. If the organization goes down, everything else goes down with it. All right. You plan for the long, you live in the short. And that's very essential in anything related to business. You plan for the long term, but you got to live in the short day to day. That's where situational pops in. Planning is essential, but being able to adapt your path to the goal is just as important. Bad planning, bad outcome. Good planning, inability to adapt to reach that outcome could be just as bad. And I kind of put up here, and I've always believed this, especially from an organizational behavior standpoint, the only constant in the universe is change. Now you could argue death and taxes maybe as well, fair enough, but change is constant. Okay, paradigm shifting happens whether you like it or not. Okay, can you shift with it? Can you adapt with it? If you can't, sometimes you become a dinosaur, you become obsolete, right? And something new or someone new or some organization new comes in and facilitates a core competency, it gets a competitive advantage, and then you're gone. Okay. Situational leadership can assess the maturity level of the employees. Leaders manage both the directive and the supportive behavior of followers. When they put forth those tasks to obviously reach the goals, that's the task-driven component, is goal reaching, or goals with an S I've kind of put up here. Being able to measure the level of maturity of the subordinates. Maturity is not age, guys. Okay, I've met some 30-year-olds that act less mature than teenagers. All right, heck, at Caterpillar, I met some 40-year-olds that act less mature than teenagers. It's not what we're talking about here. It's not an age component, but understanding the maturity level. What is the individual's knowledge and skills, and what is their commitment to it? What's their motivational to it? Can help establish the level of development. You do not want to use a level of development that is not at the level of the follower. If you've got somebody that needs a lot of help and you're basically just task, you're going to have a lot of problems. The person's going to get disenfranchised and they're going to end up leaving. Okay. It's called voluntary turnover. Right? And if you don't want the person there, you should eliminate them anyway through involuntary turnover, because you're just wasting money in relation to the time. Asking someone to do more than they're ready to do, or not pushing someone who's getting bored, will result in a decrease of productivity and an increase of negative attrition. The individual will not take any risk. The individual will just do what they have to do, or they'll start looking for another job and they'll just do everything or they'll just quit right on the spot and leave. And that leaves you with a hole that you have to then fill. And I've heard some, oh God, I heard some guys at Caterpillar, some line managers, it just aggravated me to no end. Well, if they can't figure it out, we'll just fire them and get somebody else. It's not, every time you do that, increases the cost structure for the plant. It also increases recruitment, selection, and training of new individuals. Okay. Yes. If somebody just doesn't want to do the job, they don't have the ability, don't have the desire, they shouldn't be there. I get that. But if somebody just is not getting the proper training, you just don't say, okay, throw them in a baby out with the bathwater. I said, that is so short-sighted. But some of these line managers, the old timers that've been there forever, their only concern was making productivity on their line. They didn't care how their line impacted the overall organization. It didn't matter to them. Okay. That's why you have to have that next layer. It's called tactical management. To basically say, you are a small part of a bigger picture. And if you don't control how you're doing, you're going to have a negative impact on the overall bigger picture. And then corporate, that's the strategic management folks, they're going to come down on you hard. They're going to come down on the plant manager, who's going to come down on you. Everything flows downhill. It's kind of what I'm getting at here. You've got to assess the maturity level of the employees from a leadership perspective. All right. And, my little scenario I gave you there, a factual scenario. There were times we had to replace line managers. It's like, no, you're done. Either you retire, if you can retire. If not, I'm going to transfer you somewhere where you're not in charge of anybody. And I did do that. Okay. Yeah. Why? Because you have to focus also on the social emotional. Okay. The skills that go with that. People-oriented skills. I just picked some of them I thought were pretty simple. Most of you had at least a working knowledge of. Self-awareness, social awareness, relationship skills, self-management, responsibility, responsible decision-making. Things that are not just focusing on, if you're task, okay, it doesn't work. The leadership skills I used on the global side, I didn't use on the operations side, guys. It's a night and day different. And I definitely didn't use when I was in a classroom when I'm in a classroom. Okay. The leadership skills I use are, especially in higher ed, way more collaborative. Yes, I have to assess you. Yes, there are going to be outcome measurements. Okay. Are all of you going to measure the same way? No, you're not. I'm sorry. Okay. And you shouldn't. You're not identical. Right. However, there is a strong foundation with grad students that, you know what, I shouldn't have to give C, Ds, or Fs. I should not ever have to give a C, D, or F to a grad student. Have I done it? Yes. Do I like to do it? No. But is it reality? Sure it is. Okay. I never liked firing anybody. I never liked terminating somebody's employment. That's the worst thing. If I had to do it, yes. Okay. It's part of the process. All right. But you focus on the relationship component as well. And it is. They help the leader know when subordinates are needing support and when they need a challenge, when they need help, when they need to be pushed, when they need help, when they need to be pushed. It is a very complicated and it is a sliding scale kind of line, like a pendulum. But you have to constantly know and understand these. It's important to remember that not all subordinates are coming in with the same education, economic background, the cultural, the social background. You know, one of the dumbest things I think I've ever heard, I heard a line manager say this: business is business and personal is personal. They never should intersect. What? There's no, this is not a firewall. You can't separate the individual when they walk through a door from everything else that makes them that. You don't turn a personality off. Okay. You may hide it for 8 hours while you're in the plant, but it never goes away. People bring in their personality. You know, I was teaching an undergraduate OB class last semester, and we were talking about, when I was supervising hourly employees, that, yeah, I'd spend up to 45 minutes or an hour each day, almost as a counselor. Okay. Listening, going over different, listening to what people had to say, trying to be empathetic, trying to help them out if I can. Okay. If they're having trouble with X, is there an employee assistance program here at the company that can help them, and getting them connected with somebody? Okay. I don't want somebody coming into work, especially in an environment where it's, number one, it's dangerous, and not fully focused on the job that needs to be done because there's emotional baggage. We all have that. Okay. And the neat part was, I actually had a student in the class who had just done an internship in management in a manufacturing facility. And he said, you know what, I was with the manager and I noticed that, yeah, he spent 30 minutes, 45 minutes each day, basically listening to employees in relation to things that had nothing to do with work. It may be other emotional baggage that was just coming with them. Guys, that's understanding that skill set. Okay. If sometimes people just need someone third party to talk to, and that might be you. If you're supervising others, you say, oh, get back to work. I'm paying you to work. That's just task 100%. And that's fine, but you've got to be able to measure the task to the relationship. Okay. Otherwise, you're not going to get the greatest return on your investment. From a leadership perspective, your investment is what? Capital. You're paying them. Okay. Directive and guidance for subordinates. Leaders need to provide direction, guidance, and feedback whenever it's necessary or applicable. All right. Feedback is essential. And don't be blah with it. Don't tell everybody, good job, good job, good job. It means nothing. Okay. It means absolutely nothing. All right. Make sure you give feedback, and then feedback, positive and negative feedback. All right. Tell them what's right. Tell them what's wrong. Tell them how to do it better. Yeah. I remember I was given a presentation. Back was it 91? In the transmission business unit over something. And one of the old line managers stood up and said, no, you're right. That's not how it's done. I said, okay, then why don't you come up here and show me everybody how to do it right? Complete silence. Okay. I said, no, you can't give feedback without giving me direction and guidance. You can't just say this is wrong without telling me where it's wrong and how to do it right. And I'm more than open. I'm an open system here. I'm more than open to adapt anything I've come up with here if you can show me how to do it better. And of course, nothing at all. Right? That's not good. Yeah, that's not good at all. Okay, even the most highly skilled employee needs a little help or a good word every now and then. They do. Okay, I used to walk in. I mean, at first, it kind of freaked some of the hourly people out that had crossed the picket line. Some of them crossed their own picket line, or the temporary workers we brought in. I'd walk into the machining cell and just say, "Hi, how you doing? What do you need? How's it going? You know, can we talk for a couple seconds?" It did kind of freak him out a little bit at first. What's he doing here? What's he want? I don't want anything. I just want to know how they were doing. How was their day going? Okay. What's your name? You know, are you married? That kind of stuff. Just trying to be a little more adaptive to understand them. So the next time I see him, I can say, "Hi, John, how's it going?" Okay. This should include hard skills, which are the task, and soft skills, which I just mentioned is a soft skill. Okay. Yes. Was I a little combative with that line manager? Yes, I was, because I knew I was not going to get any direction or guidance. It was just a critique of me. Okay, college boy. That's what a couple of guys, a couple of the old line managers, college boy doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, yeah, I do. Okay, I understand operations as well as you do. I know how to look at production schedules. I know how to work out cost, cost components. I know how to look at raw materials, work in progress, and finished goods and facilitate return. I know all that stuff, but I also understand the soft skills. I know how to talk to people. I know how to find out what's going right or wrong. If it's going right, how do we duplicate it? If it's going wrong, how do we fix it? And it is. You're trying to express direction, guidance, and feedback. Feedback is essential. Direction and guidance, you know what? Yeah, you can. Sometimes you need it. Sometimes when you give feedback, it's amazing how the follower will figure out exactly what you're trying to say and say, "You know what? You're right. I need to do this instead." All right. Then I didn't have to give any direction or guidance whatsoever. The feedback alone helped that individual facilitate that it was their idea. And once they believe it's their idea, they have a vested interest in seeing it become an outcome. I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is plant the seed, put a little water on it, get out of the way, and let the sun do its job. And it will grow itself. Okay. So how do we look at enhancing work productivity? Remember, we're looking at both sides of the equation here. All right. Situational leadership, situational leaders themselves are flexible, and they can utilize transformational leadership at the same time. We'll talk about transformational leadership a little bit later. Okay. They can, along with followers, transformational is organizational shifting. We'll get to it here in a little bit. They can, and here's important, along with the followers, it's a collaborative outcome. Identify processes, products, structures, designs, whatever, the culture, anything that can be improved and add value and increase that competitiveness. Okay. The smallest thing can add value. Okay. This is a true story. Inside the production facility, there were big garbage, like 5-gallon tubs with garbage liners in it that people would throw garbage into and so on and so forth. And one of the hourly guys that went around collecting it, he would always say that, no matter what's in there, these liners never tear. I've never seen a tear in one of them ever. I said, well, that's a good thing. I said, yeah, it's awesome. He said, I don't think so. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, they are super thick. And then my little brain started clicking. And I said, really? He said, yeah, take a look. Never looked at them before. No clue. Took a look at the garbage. These aren't your typical, Glad trash bag liners. You look at the line, they're real thick. And I'm like, that's interesting because we don't put metal in them. All right. Now, if you had sharp metal, you'd say that makes sense. All right. Do we really need these thick garbage liners? Come to find out, no, we don't. We could get much thinner ones. And you don't have to be an accountant to know this. The thinner the material, the cheaper the cost. Okay. So we just decreased a cost structure that had nothing to do with productivity and outcomes. You just decreased the cost of goods sold, for a better way of looking at it. And it added more value and it made us more profitable. And you're talking about a mile squared building. These, mile squared, these things are huge. This production facility. You got a lot of garbage cans in there. You got a lot of garbage liners. Okay. And it got me thinking, wait a minute. If there's one secondary asset, which garbage liners are a secondary asset, You buy them, you utilize them. Okay. Maybe we could find other things that we're spending money on that we could cut back on in relation to cost. And we did. We found several other things in the plant. And we were able to save even more money, which increases competitiveness and profitability. Okay. And it wasn't just one garbage can. It was, geez, 1,000 or more of them in there, constantly being changed. Okay. When subordinates have a vested interest in the goals and the outcomes, guaranteed. I don't like using absolutes, but guaranteed, if they have a vested interest, it increases commitment. Okay. I always tell students, don't ever buy a car that was a rental. People say, why? I said, because most people treat rental cars like I treat them. I have a little bit of fun with them. That's plain and simple. Let's be honest. I kind of maybe go a little fast and I have a little fun. I accelerate a little harder than I should. I don't do that with my own car. Why not? Because it increases the cost of it. You got to replace your tires more often. You got to replace your brakes. It puts more wear on your engine. Okay. When it's my vehicle, I have a vested interest in making sure I take care of it because there's a cost structure for me. Plus, in the end, I want to be able to do what with it? I want to be able to sell it and buy a new car at some point in time. So therefore, it helps to develop trust in the leader. Trust is something you have to work a lifetime to get, maybe not a lifetime, but you understand. And you can ruin it in 1 minute by violating the trust you have. So we're looking at now, how do we increase subordinates' motivation? Motivation, I love doing research on motivation, okay, especially with job satisfaction. Motivation is something I've always found interesting. When a leader institutes that foundation of empowerment by delegating tasks and trust, okay, there's an increase in motivation. It's just like a parent saying to a child, I trust you're going to do the right thing. You know what? The child will probably try to do the right thing. Okay. I trust that you're going to, get a good grade on this. I trust that you're going to facilitate what needs to be done. Okay. This includes helping skill development and providing support when needed. I know you know how to do your job. Go do it. If you believe that there's an issue, come and see me. If you think that there's a problem, come and see me. If you need something and you can't get it on your own, come and see me. If you can get it on your own, get it on your own. Okay. You don't want to go running to your manager, supervisor, or leader continuously for every little thing. Okay. But one thing I've always believed, and I tell students this in strategic, always keep your direct supervisor informed. Yeah, you don't need to tell them you're going to the bathroom. That's not what I'm telling. If there's something that can come up, if there's some negative, especially external to the organizational environment, outside the business unit, outside the division, okay, if there's something I think outside the College of Business that the dean may have to interact with, I let him know it's possible that this could happen. Okay, never blindside. That's that support. You give him support or her support, they will be there for you. It's a symbiotic relationship. Increased motivation. Now keep in mind, there's two components of motivation, extrinsic and intrinsic. Extrinsic's external, just think money if it makes it simple for you. That's a short term. Short term, it can be very powerful. Long term, it loses its power. Intrinsic is long term. Really, intrinsic short term may not be as powerful as extrinsic, but long term it is. Helps to improve productivity and lowers attrition rates, whether it's voluntary or involuntary. Okay. In reality, if hiring is done, if recruitment and selection is done right, involuntary turnover should be incredibly low. Okay. You shouldn't have to get rid of anybody. You shouldn't have to fire anybody. Okay. Now, obviously that doesn't happen. It does happen, obviously. Reducing voluntary turnover is what you want to make sure that you try to abate. In a leadership perspective, you obviously don't want this person to leave. You want them. They are productive. They are a star. They are whatever you want to call them. Okay. You don't want them to leave. All right. So therefore, you need to make sure from a situational approach that you're able to understand if they're getting burned out, if they're getting bored, you need to facilitate maybe more training, a new job challenge, more responsibility. I don't know. Only you can make that decision. Help leaders classify subordinates who need to be empowered. Give them more to do. Give them another challenge. I need to be challenged constantly. That's part of my personality. Okay. When I get bored, I find things to challenge myself. Now, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. It depends on how you look at that. Or maybe they need more one-on-one support. Maybe you need to sit them down in the office and say, let's have a talk. Okay. Tell me how I can help you do this better. All right. Or and the person says, well, I'm not interested in doing any of this. All right. Yeah, then it might be time for an involuntary turnover. Okay. All right, then I need to find somebody else. I'm sorry. Okay. So let's talk about just a couple. Let's talk about some strengths of situational leadership. And it's not all unicorns and rainbows here. There are some criticisms too, which we'll kind of give a little look at here. But let's look at the strengths. Situational leadership is utilized by a lot of for-profit organizations and even not-for-profits, but a lot of for-profits to train their leaders. Okay. Why? Because in a for-profit world, things change quickly. You have to be able to adapt. In a global company, there's no such thing as 9 to 5. It does not exist. Christmas is just one day in the year. Thanksgiving, FYI, only exists here. Okay. Other parts of the world, it's just another day in November. All right. Keep that in mind. It is a good training component, especially if you've got a global operation, because you're going to be dealing with multitudes of different cultures, economic systems, governmental entities, employees. Practicality. It's a very straightforward approach. It's easy to understand and apply, and there it is. Once you understand the leadership component and the follower component, you can mesh the two of them together to figure out what to do. It has a prescriptive value. It clearly outlines what you should and should not do in various settings. Okay. It's not dictatorial, but it is very prescriptive. It allows for flexibility. Situational leadership allows for the style to change and to deviate based on the subordinates' needs and even somewhat the environment. But the environment will have an impact on the subordinates, and you can facilitate the subordinates through the environmental part of it. Okay. And there's differential treatment. It's based on the fact that leaders need to treat subordinates according to those unique needs that they have. Okay. Don't ever micromanage somebody who knows what they're doing. Don't double check on them. Oh, I'm going to double check what you're doing. Don't do that. If they ask for it, then do it. If there's a problem, you would have caught it already, and they wouldn't have the empowerment, the authority, and responsibility to do it anymore anyway. Okay. So you won't want to do that. Well, there are some criticisms. Let's be honest. Okay. And it is that there needs to be some future academic research to determine how commitment and competence are conceptualized. Okay. What do these words mean? Is commitment's a sliding scale, like a Likert scale. Okay. Competence, that's very, subjective. It's like, what do you consider competent? Okay. So yeah, it is. The model has predictive power when leaders and followers, okay, their perceptions of commitment and competence match. Okay. When both sides say this is a competent outcome, okay, then you've established the foundation. You've established the rules or the structure. All right. It does not account for how particular demographic influences the leader subordinate prescription of the model. Experienced employees prefer less directive behavior. Okay. Older workers, individuals that are more senior, they don't really want directive leadership at all. Just, leave them alone. They don't want authoritative. They don't want somebody poking their nose in their business. Skilled trades guys definitely do not like somebody like me asking them what they're doing or watching them. I was watching a couple electrician and an apprentice, and the electrician came over and said to me, "What am I doing wrong?" I'm like, "Nothing. I'm just watching because I was curious." Then the whole environment changed. Okay. And when I showed up somewhere else in the plant, watching the pipe fitters at work and the apprentices, they just waved at me. Because they knew exactly why I was there. I wasn't there watching them do their work. I was watching what they were doing because I had no clue what they were doing. Right. And I basically went up and said, "Is it okay if I watch? I'm just really curious." And they're like, "Oh God, yeah, here, you want to help?" And I'm like, "Okay." Because I don't mind getting my hands dirty. That's that understanding. There's no way in the world I know what these skilled trades. You guys have been doing this, they went through apprenticeships, they've been doing this for 30 years. Okay. Electrical stuff was cool. And I still find that interesting today. It fails to adequately address the issue of one-on-one versus group. And it does. It doesn't, it almost sounds situational, almost sounds, well, everything's one-on-one. Well, partially, yes. But it also is applicable to a group setting, like a functional team, like what I worked in on the global side. It was more of a functional component than it was one-on-one because we worked as a collaborative. So what is the application of it? Well, it's often used in consulting because it's easy to conceptualize and apply. It is pretty easy to put to paper or put to a PowerPoint. Okay. It's straightforward. It's very practical. It's not complicated. It's not ambiguous. It doesn't leave you asking more questions than give you answers. And it is. The breadth of the situational approach is applicable in virtually any type of organization at any level. Okay, from strategic management to operational to tactical, from hourly workers to salaried workers, within salaried workers, it's applicable across the entire organization, and it's applicable outside of the for-profit realms. It's applicable into not-for-profit higher education. It's applicable government, maybe a little less, because government is set by bureaucratic standards, and bureaucratic doesn't allow for deviation that much, because everything is specialization of, this is my job and I don't do anything outside my job because that's somebody else's job, which don't ever say that in a for-profit environment, because every job is everybody's job. Okay, if it relates to profitability. Okay, hold on here.